Spider-Man 2's story is an absolute train wreck. I'm not gonna lie, I had very low expectations for this game's writing. The first game's story was pretty mid. I somewhat liked the Miles Morales spin-off story, but Spider-Man 2 dropped the ball off a cliff into a volcano that goes straight into hell into the devil's asshole. This game is one of the very rare cases where a piece of media getting called woke by the anti-SJWs on YouTube is actually woke. The writers so clearly prioritize political messaging and pandering over actual good storytelling, or even trying to blend that messaging in with good storytelling so it isn't just fucking annoying. And nowhere is the writer sacrificing good storytelling for political messaging more clear than in the game's ending, which might just be the worst thing about this game, and probably the worst Sony game ending ever. I can only summarize my thoughts on this ending with a single clip from it. See, Spider-Man 2 actually drops the ball 3 separate times in its storytelling. Every time the game switches to a new act, it becomes a completely different story. I'm not going to go too deep into how it does that because that's a video for another day, but the first act is about the team of Spider-Men fighting Kraven. The second act is about Peter trying to get the Venom suit off so he can save Harry, and the third act is Peter trying to save Harry again, who's been corrupted by the Venom symbiote and is now taking over the world. But it drops the ball the most in the last 8 minutes of it after the last boss fight. Now, I'm just going to set the stage here in case you saved yourself from the displeasure of experiencing Spider-Man 2's story, but basically Harry gets in contact with the Venom symbiote after Peter got it off himself at the end of the second act and becomes this universe's actual Venom. Not like the Venom Spider-Man suit, like the actual big-ass Venom monster. And on paper, I really like this idea. I think the Spider-Man villains that have a pre-built connection with Peter are always infinitely more interesting than the ones who don't. That's one of the reasons why No Way Home is honestly kinda ass. The villains have absolutely no idea who this version of Spider-Man is. It was cool to have these villains from previous Spider-Man movies back on the screen after so many years, but they might as well be cardboard cutouts with the actor of the villains' face on them. When you compare the villains in that movie to someone like Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2018, it is infinitely more interesting and emotional to see Peter fighting who used to be his mentor and who he looked up to. But as with everything in this game, the idea of Venom being Harry is utterly destroyed by its execution in the game, from him just not being there long enough to have an impact at all. If we saw the symbiote slowly corrupting Harry, then there would be some intrigue here, but no, it goes from him being perfectly normal when he has the symbiote for the first time, and then him giving it to Peter, and then when he gets it back, he's just a fucking psycho and wants to eat the world. For a lack of a better phrase, so fucking boring! So then Peter, Miles, and MJ have this giant showdown against Venom, and I can't lie, this does have a really cool boss fight, and in the end, it leads with the two Spider-Men and MJ stopping Venom, but now Harry is out of commission and essentially a vegetable. That's where we are in the story right now. So the ending starts off with a monologue from MJ where she's discussing what the city needs to do now following Venom's attack on a podcast. Just a side note here, why do so many people use fucking podcasts in this game series? Like, genuinely, who the fuck uses podcasts? Am I the only one that doesn't listen to these things? Like, I know the developers decided to go the podcast angle because it's easier to just put in voice lines than to have all these mini cutscenes of news videos of these characters, because then you have to animate that, and if you're really unlucky, you might just need to have the person who was initially voice acting come in and mocap the scenes, and you know, billion-dollar company Sony doesn't have the money for that. They have to put the money into side quests where you walk around playing as a fucking deaf girl, spray painting, and can't even do the bare minimum of being somewhat fun to play. Anyways, MJ is narrating her podcast and walks downstairs to Miles and Peter having breakfast with Miles' mom and the deaf girl who is now Miles' girlfriend. Peter takes MJ outside to show MJ something and opens the garage to show a new version of the Emily and May Foundation, which he plans to start in his garage. And all I have to say is, what the fuck? To say this is out of character for Spider-Man, even more specifically this Spider-Man, who let his aunt die because it was the only way to save the city, would be the understatement of the century. It makes no sense at all. This is like the ending of Avengers Endgame where Captain America retires all over again. Fucking Captain America, who knows there is still work to be done, decides to fucking retire at one of the most critical moments in his career, where the universe recovers from its restoration after being quite literally cut in half. I'm sorry, that's another rant video for another day. Anyways, again, this completely betrays Peter's character and the whole idea of with great power comes great responsibility that literally every Spider-Man property has had. Peter wants to focus on helping the environment, which is good, but he also has fucking spider powers and lives in a world filled with crazy crackhead villains. And you could make the argument, well, he he's not the only Spider-Man anymore, and Miles is more than capable of handling things himself. Okay, well, now that's 2 people that have Spider-Man powers. That's still a whole lot less people than the people who can help the environment. There is absolutely no reason why he should think that he can use his mental ability to help the environment more than he can use his powers to help New York. So continuing on, Miles comes out in his new costume he got at the end of the game, which, can I say, this costume is fucking awful. I don't know why the fuck they had to change it at the end of the game. His suit from the spinoff was actually fucking perfect. Probably like the best interpretation of what Miles' suit could have been, and then they had to change it because, oh, Peter got a new suit, so now Miles has to have a new suit as well. Not to mention it just looks like shit. It's like the people who designed it looked at Miles less as Spider-Man and more of Peter's sidekick. And as someone who actually likes Miles more than Peter, this is just straight up a fucking hate crime. And apparently there's like a rumor going around that the only reason the suit looks like this is because Insomniac had a partnership deal with Adidas, and this suit was essentially just a fucking product placement, and it's just, oh my god, I'm gonna fucking rip my hair out here. Anyways, Peter essentially tells Miles that he wants Miles to be the main Spider-Man in New York, and then Miles just goes okay and goes off into the city. Holy shit. We need to break down what the fuck even happened here, because it is genuinely terrible. First off, Uncle Ben is rolling in his fucking grave right now. So even if Peter does think Miles should have NYC handled on his own if he were to leave him, why the fuck doesn't Peter just go to a different city? I know why the writers didn't make that decision. It's because Spider-Man's home is New York, and changing that would be changing an extremely important pillar of the character, but Peter himself doesn't know that. Again, if he thought he wasn't of much use to NYC anymore because of Miles living there, go to a different city with a lot of crime happening in it. And then we have to bring up that this is quite literally one of the worst possible times for Peter to just give up all his responsibility of being Spider-Man to Miles. Keep in mind what just happened here. A fucking alien took over Peter's best friend, took over all of New York and most of its inhabitants, and tried to take over the world. And since at most this ending takes place like a few days after the final boss of the game, since there isn't a specifically stated time jump, the world is still very much recovering from this shit. To put into a real world comparison, it has been 3 years since the fucking COVID pandemic, and there's still motherfuckers out here with masks in big cities. And you're trying to tell me New York has no need for 2 Spider-Men? The fuck? When an entire city has been quite literally had their minds taken over by an alien. Not to mention the fact that the world now knows that aliens exist. I mean, there has to be some type of hysteria because of that now. And who knows if the Venom symbiote infesting itself in these people could have given them some kind of like alien virus that their body holds no defense against. And in the middle of all this shit happening at the same time, one of the Spider-Men just up and fucking quits. And you could argue, oh Josh, it's a superhero story, it's not supposed to have good world building. Motherfucker, what are the best superhero movies out there? Spider-Verse 1 and 2, Civil War, The Winter Soldier, and Logan, I'd say personally. All of those movies have super over-the-top concepts with their hero or whatever the fuck they're doing, but at the same time, they have some very grounded world building that makes sense. A lot of these showing the moral debate that a superhero would realistically have. Civil War is a movie with a plot that's pretty much entirely built on political messaging, and it's fucking fantastic because of it, from how they actually stick to the message they're preaching about freedom versus taking accountability. Meanwhile, with Spider-Man 2, the neon heads at Sweet Baby Inc. just wanted Miles as the main Spider-Man, but at the same time didn't have the balls to kill off Peter Parker to make that realistically happen. So what they did then was make up some bullshit excuse that Peter wants to help the environment, man, which makes absolutely no sense with what his character is shown in previous games. Like, holy shit, it's actually fucking terrible. And again, it's so clear the writers only did this thing because they wanted Miles Morales as the main Spider-Man from here going forward, which again, on its own, it's totally fine. Miles has obviously been shown to have the ability to lead a Spider-Man movie with flying colors, and still to the success that would be expected of a Spider-Man movie from how the Spider-Verse movies have done with the reviews and at the box office. But what these movies do is, for one, they make a valid explanation as to why Miles is the main Spider-Man in his universe. 2, they actually give Miles something to do. That's another thing with this game and how the woke storytelling ruined everything. They want Miles to be the lead because he's a minority of Black and Puerto Rican descent, but they give him absolutely nothing to do here. His only 2 major plot lines in this game is learning to forgive the guy that killed his dad and finishing his college essay. Then they try to act like Miles is the code lead in this game, and hashtag Miles Morales is Spider-Man, when no, He's not either of those because they give him nothing to do here. The Spider-Verse interpretation of Miles is Spider-Man. The Insomniac Spider-Man 2 one is not. They gave Miles a sidekick outfit at the end of the game because in this game series, he is Peter's sidekick. And again, it genuinely fucking hurts to see Miles treated like this, especially after how good Across the Spider-Verse was over the summer. Despite what I said the last 2 minutes, I am not a Miles Morales hater. In most of his interpretations, yes, he is Spider-Man. The Spider-Verse interpretation of the character is honestly my favorite superhero. And after the success of Across the Spider-Verse, it should have been so fucking easy to implement Miles into this story. They already did a really good adaptation of his origin story in the spin-off back in 2020, but they absolutely fumbled him here. Once his beef with Martin Lee is solved in the second act of the game, he is given nothing to do. I'm gonna be honest here, Last of Us 2 looks at Spider-Man 2's story and laughs at it. That's how fucking terrible this game's writing is. Because at least Last of Us 2 has a consistent theme throughout its entire story. At least Last of Us 2 has the balls to kill off its main character to make the side character of the game its new protagonist. At least Abby in that game is actually a co-lead and is given things to do in that game. At least the characters that don't die remain consistent with what was previously established about them. Now, I don't like tearing things apart without giving my 2 cents of how I would fix the issues I have. I feel like doing that just isn't really productive. It's like grading a test and giving a score and telling you the questions you got wrong, but not telling you the answers to those questions. So, how do we fix this ending? Well, honestly, to make the story as a whole even passable, we'd probably have to rewrite the entire fucking game here, because this entire story is a complete clusterfuck, and I am not doing that today because I don't want this video to be an hour long. So what instead we're going to be doing here is just rewriting the last half hour of the game to make the ending somewhat well written. Now, the easy way to fix this ending is don't make Miles the main Spider-Man at the end of this game and just save that for the end of the trilogy. But a major thing I want to consider here is the writer's intentions for the ending. If we analyze the intentions of the writers with this ending, making Miles the lead Spider-Man of this universe is at the very top. Now, to do this as effectively as possible, you'd really have to just kill off Peter at that point, but obviously that's not what the writers want to do here because they quite literally do not have balls. From the material they give Miles, they clearly don't think he's a good enough character to lead a game with Peter Parker completely absent from it, which is genuinely sad in my opinion because again, I fucking love Miles. So what you have to do is in the final fight against Venom, when Harry is dying because they got the Venom suit off of him, instead of Miles using some Deus Ex Machina plot device to save Harry, Peter has to give Harry Spider-Man powers in order to save his life. How exactly this works, I'm genuinely not sure, but dude, this universe has a Russian guy juiced up on fucking roids who thinks he's a rhino. This is not the most far-fetched idea in this universe, believe me. So now we have a parallel to the ending of Spider-Man 2018, where Peter had to sacrifice Aunt May to save the city. We get a similar scene to that too. It could even flash back to it, or have the shot be an obvious parallel to it. During this, Peter wonders who's gonna protect the city if he isn't gonna be able to be Spider-Man anymore. He doesn't know if him sacrificing his powers to save Harry's life will just give Harry his powers as well, or even bring him back to life completely. But then, he realizes Miles is here now, and more than capable of taking care of the city on his own. It would be harder for him, yeah, but he doesn't want his friend to die after having already lost him for 2 years. So he sacrifices his powers to save Harry, and it puts Harry in a coma like at the end of the game. And pretty much everything else plays out how it did at the end. Peter restarts the Emily May Foundation to do what he can do for the world even though he isn't Spider-Man anymore. And boom, now we have Miles as the main Spider-Man, and all of the characters are in their same places at the end. No out of character decisions, no stupid shit. Thank you. Thank you. Those of you who hire the writers at Sweet Baby, you can hit my email up if you want to. I'd fucking love to take their jobs. But yeah, the fact that such a simple change of Peter just giving up his powers to save Harry fixed all of the out of character decisions made at the end of the game that literally a fucking senior in high school, myself, came up with is absolutely insane and should go to show you the absolute incompetence of the writers over at Sweet Baby. What's surprising to me though is that these people have written so many different games in the last couple of years. It's actually insane. They have all these huge names in the gaming industry as their clients, and they're like 5 years old and really haven't even been mentioned in the gaming industry until now. Although the fact that they've written some of these games does make sense. God of War Ragnarok, Alan Wake 2, Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I see what's happening here. All of these games have one thing in common in terms of writing. Even God of War, pacing. They all have way too much going on in them. And that's what I'm gonna focus on the next time I feel like talking about Spider-Man, because like I hinted at several times in this video, holy holy shit, the structure and pacing of this game is god awful. Anyways, I'm done here. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Follow my Twitter. If you really liked the video, you can become a member and give me some money. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.